Oh. One of the things I've noticed is that I'm actually a very boring person. So I've decided to discuss not how to improve myself, but in fact, how what it's like being a boring person. The first thing that I've noticed is that I get a lot of comments asking me if I'm Napoleon Dynamite, and the answer is, gosh, no, I'm not him. Yes, I lived in Idaho. Yes, I was a kid who hung out in the library in high school. And yes, I've worn moon boots. They're useful in Idaho. And I've worn suits and ties and stuff in high school and going to Idaho. And, this really isn't helping my argument. I'm not Napoleon Dynamite. I'd like. I've often wondered if Jared Hess has tried to steal from my life. There was a serious consideration on whether or not I should sue him. But, generally speaking, no, I'm not the dude. My hair is fine right now, but the depending on how I take care of it and stuff, it does end up getting poofy, and I end up looking like Napoleon Dynamite, and I get that question a lot, especially now that I have these glasses. Every day I go out, I walk to school, and I spend my entire day at school just sitting there learning. And I'm a history major, so that gives you an idea of what I study. Nothing interesting unless you consider history interesting, and I happen to think history is very interesting. I study how cultures interacted, nomadic tribes traveling over northern Eurasia, and how they connected and how they had cultural impasses on each other, which doesn't get covered a lot in history. So I end up having to read a lot of books. I think I've read somewhere around 3 to 4 books in the last 2 months just on that subject. I'm also studying video games, so along with being boring, I'm also a nerd, which I guess goes hand in hand. My mom is from a long line of nerds. My uncle Jim is a computer programmer, as is my uncle uh, Susan's wife, Susan's husband. Sorry, Uncle Phil. Uh, Uncle Phil is boring as well. He programs the entire that entire side of the family is into programming. And then let's be honest here. My dad is a doctor, which would be interesting if he wasn't an optometrist. And he's a boring optometrist. When we have food, he'll be like, now, which one is better, one or two? And we're like, Dad, it's gravy. Just give us gravy, please. And yeah, that's pretty much my life. And uh, being boring is not something you should hate, not something that you should consider a horrible thing, but it does have its problems at times. I just wanted to say that yes, I'm a boring person, and I'm going to stand it from now on. I'm not going to try to be interesting. Even when I'm doing interesting things, it's the things I'm doing that are interesting. And I myself am boring at it. When I video edit, I just sit there at a computer and edit videos, and it's very fascinating. And people people wonder about my excellent technical skills, and I eventually have to explain that it's because I'm boring, and I have to just sit down with the computer and spend long hours learning how the program works. And then once I understand how those programs work, I can do this technically excellent thing, which represents a considerable amount of time of boredom, and I've learned to deal with it. Uh, I don't watch movies anymore because they're too interesting for me. Books, history books mostly. Maybe Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman. See, he's interesting. He leads an interesting life. He writes interesting books, and I write interesting things, but usually that involves me sitting at a computer typing. So I've come to realize that most of my interesting things involve me being bored, and so I've decided to just admit I'm boring and move on with my life.